Leo Tolstoy was a Russian novelist who is often regarded as one of the greatest and most influential writers of all time. Through his works of fiction as well as his essays, he expressed his pacifist outlook on war. Hi Matt, I'm on the road, so I'm going to let you lead our discussion today. Take it away.
Hi John. Drive carefully since you don't have an AI-powered self-driving car yet. In this video, we will study how Tolstoy expressed his philosophical views on war and peace in two of his essays, A Letter to a Hindu, a letter he wrote in 1908 to Taraknath Das, an Indian revolutionary and scholar, and The Kingdom of God is Within You, a Christian anarchist philosophical treatise. We also will discuss the ongoing influence of his ideas and why this influence seems to have waned in recent years. In these writings, Tolstoy argues that nonviolent resistance is the best way to fight injustice. He believed that this method would be more effective than violence in the long run. He thought that to fight evil, you must not do evil yourself, which included not using violence even in self-defense. Furthermore, Tolstoy believed that nonviolence is the only way to achieve true peace as a way of life. He saw violence as the law of the jungle that had no place in the realm of rational beings. Tolstoy thought that nonviolence is not a sign of weakness, but, to the contrary, was the most powerful force in the world. He didn't see it as passive submission to evil, but, instead, active resistance to evil by refusing to cooperate with it or to use violence against it. In perhaps the most controversial interpretation of his writings, Tolstoy seemed to advocate for pacifists to resist participation in war up to the point of refusing military service and not paying taxes. Tolstoy held out hope that nonviolence could break the cycle of conflict between nations and rival groups. He felt that the only way to stop violence was to encourage people to stop believing in it as a solution to problems. He suggested people take heed of religious teachings that held that people should learn to love their enemies and to turn the other cheek. Let's now consider the influence his writings have had in the 20th century and beyond. Tolstoy's nonviolent philosophy had a profound influence on Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was a Hindu, but he was deeply inspired by Tolstoy's Christian teachings. As we know, Gandhi adopted Tolstoy's principle of nonviolence and used it to lead India to independence from British rule. Gandhi's successful nonviolent resistance movement inspired people all over the world, such as Martin Luther King in America, to fight for their freedom using nonviolent means. Most people today see a philosophy of nonviolence as an ideal to try to live up to, but we have seen nonviolent philosophies become less influential over the past few decades, with even political factions that once called for peace, now urging for retaliatory war. Why is this? Let's take a look at some of the reasons. Some people suggest that the nature of modern-day conflicts is often vastly more complex and nuanced than when Tolstoy and Gandhi were alive. They point out that it's difficult to apply purely nonviolent approaches when facing issues like state-sponsored terrorism, particularly through proxy extremist groups. Others note that state-supported propaganda often encourages a violent outlook against enemies of the current regime. Some blame the 24-hour news cycle and social media, which tend to focus on immediate, dramatic, and often violent events. Also, social media allows government propaganda and extremist ideologies to spread at an unprecedented rate. Violent groups, often with decentralized leadership, recruit through inflammatory rhetoric that fuels the kind of rage that nonviolent resistance struggles to address. Also, government leaders' violent solutions are often presented as more decisive and satisfying than peaceful strategies, which are often portrayed as slow or weak. Dramatic violent events are more likely to make the news and get social media clicks than incremental gains achieved through nonviolence. In turn, this is more likely to cause leaders to choose a violent response than a slow, nonviolent approach. Another factor is that nonviolence can encounter difficulties when the lines between combatants and civilians blur, or when the opponent is a faceless ideology or a system rather than an easily identifiable foe. This makes it easier and more politically acceptable to counter violence with more violence. Nonviolent struggles often require a sustained and gradual process, while today there's societal pressure for immediate solutions and rapid change. Violent tactics, while morally troubling, can seem to offer quicker results even if those results are temporary and eventually destabilizing. Others point out that religious and social institutions, which were often at the forefront of nonviolent pacifist movements in the past, command less influence in modern society. Also, decades of low-intensity conflicts, political corruption and cronyism, and social injustices have left many people disillusioned. They may doubt the ultimate possibility of influencing change through peaceful means, thus losing faith in the religious and moral ideals nonviolence upholds. Another aspect of this disillusionment is that modern governments, militaries, and their associated corporations have far more power and surveillance capabilities today. This can create a sense of futility for nonviolent political movements, since statements that go against the current narrative will be quickly punished in a variety of ways, ranging from social cancellation, legal entanglements, imprisonment, and even assassination. So is Tolstoy's philosophy of nonviolence still relevant today? He believed that it is possible to create a world without war and violence. He believed that people could overcome differences and live together in peace, provided they were willing to change their ways. But can people do this, especially when they've become so deceived, distracted, and disillusioned? And what about dealing with people who have evil and destructive intentions? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for listening to our discussion today. Maybe my human associate John can stop driving around and figure out how to speak into a mic without mumbling. To find out if he does, subscribe to our channel, and in the meantime, watch this recommended video next.